Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Hello and welcome into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm your host, Cassidy Wood, joined by the one, the only, Will Graves. And Will, tough for the Pens tonight. Tough game. You know, they go to Columbus, try to snap a 2-game skid. Tristan Jarry's first game back after spending those 14 days at Wilkes-Barre. You know, he goes 4-1 in the 5 games down there. High hopes for him coming into tonight's game, but giving up 2 goals early. Didn't really look good from the start.
I mean, it's sort of like I was on the Showdown on Sunday, and me and Pop and Pony were talking about it. We were like, there's no chance that Tristan Jarry's first start can be in Pittsburgh, because what if he lets in an early goal?
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened. I mean, can you imagine what the response in the arena would have been if and it wasn't, I mean, you know, it's weird. Like the team is just, they're not good. I mean, it's weird. Nobody wants to say it out loud within the organization. Nobody wants to be the person that says, man, it's time to start from the ground up. I mean, I remember during, when Kyle Dubas had his availability right before the season started, I said to him specifically, I said, the Blackhawks and the Kings, the 2 teams that had runs before the Penguins had their run in the late 2010s, they had to go all the way to the bottom to kind of build themselves back up, and the Blackhawks are still in the process of doing it. And I said, why are the Penguins going to be different? He goes, well, you know, our young players get to go watch Sidney Crosby every day, and you know, they get to watch Gino and they get to watch Letang. The next wave of Penguin stars is going to learn how to be champions by watching these guys. And I'm like, maybe, but a talent you don't get talented through osmosis, okay? Because I've been around some great athletes in my life, and I'm still a pretty terrible athlete, right? So, you know, the idea that it's tough. I mean, it's the thing that was most jarring tonight, and it wasn't even the goaltending. It was the lack of the response in the third period. I mean, it's 3-2. Columbus gets one late in the second to kind of go ahead after the Pens had erased a 2-goal deficit, and then there was no jump. I mean, they got dominated the first 10 minutes of the third period tonight, and that is. For a team that talks about pride and, you know, Mike Sullivan likes to talk about courage and the integrity of his play. And look, they are Hall of Fame players at the top of that roster, but man, it is rough. And the irony, the thing about this, Cassidy, is, you know, you would think, well, at least maybe they can sell some nostalgia, right? If the team isn't going to be that competitive, at least you can come out and see the stars. They had 15,000 people at the arena on Wednesday night when they lost to the Red Wings. And, I mean, that is not a good sign that if you can't even sort of monetize this, if you're a Fenway Sports Group, if you can't get people to come out to watch these future Hall of Famers in the twilight of their career, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think you perfectly summed it up. I mean, the Pens, I think people had somewhat of high hopes coming into this season, but like you said, I mean, you can't win games when all of these other teams are building these rosters from the ground up. They have these young guys in there, and they just really can't compete right now. So unfortunate, again, 6-2 that final score in Columbus. Unfortunate loss for the Pens now on that 3-game skid. But an interesting game for people here in Pittsburgh will be tomorrow when the Pitt Panthers welcome Clemson, top 25 team here into Acrisure. They're trying to get right, too. They're also on a 2-game skid right now. This offense really has been suffering in these past 3 games, really. I mean, they squeaked out that win against Cal, but the offense just really can't seem to get things going. Head coach Pat Narduzzi said this week, you know, it's tough when you lose your left tackle. They just lack depth on that offensive line. He attributed a lot of their issues to that. Of course, Eli Holstein gets shaken up last weekend. He's still questionable right now, and Narduzzi said he will be a game-time decision tomorrow. So what do you make of this Pitt team so far this season? High hopes, 7-0, and then, you know, a 2-game skid now.
Right. I mean, I think anybody, I mean, look, let's remember they were picked to finish, I think, 13th in the ACC at a 7. So, all right, so expectations were low coming in. They have exceeded them. They could lose their last 3, and they will go to a bowl game, and they will have had a successful season. But the chance to have a special season, which nobody saw coming, I don't think anybody in the building even saw that coming, that's gone. What happens now is we kind of find out how good Cade Bell is as an offensive coordinator, because now teams have 9 games of tape to look. I mean, the Cal sort of started, Cassidy, as you pointed out, but in conference play, in their 5 conference games, they're averaging 335-ish yards per game. In their 4 non-conference games, they were averaging 540. I know a couple of those were against not good schools, but they had 498 against Cincy, and they had 475 against WVU. So like they were lighting it up, but now defenses have seen, oh, hey, this is what the this is what the Pitt offense looks like, and they have not adjusted. And to your point exactly, like the offensive line has not been great. A lot of the receivers though, and Cade Bell talked about that this week when he met with us. The receivers, some of the problems we saw, the drop passes, the procedure penalties, the false starts that we saw last week against Virginia, that should not be happening with that group. That group is healthy and that group is experienced. However, all that, so yes, it has not been great. The trend has been downwards, but look, this is a good Clemson team, but it is not a great Clemson team. Mm-hmm. And if you want a chance to redefine your season, if the defense can kind of play, obviously, I don't expect 3 pick sixes like they got against Syracuse, but if they can play that way, create some turnovers, and that is a Clemson offense that can turn the ball over, Pitt has a chance. I'm not saying I don't expect them to win, but I do expect them to be competitive.
Yeah, and you mentioned the defense. I was going to mention that next. I feel like they've been kind of quiet too ever since that really big performance against Syracuse. I feel like these past 2 weeks, they really haven't been that splashy. Like, obviously, that was an anomaly. You can't go out there and have 3 pick sixes in every game. But I just thought, especially late, SMU, tough game, tough environment they were in. But last week, I just thought there were some opportunities where they could have, created a turnover or just been a little more explosive, especially that linebacker group. And I just feel like they've been a little quiet too. Yeah,
I think it's, it's weird. Like one of the things that has happened with them, the pass rush, which is what they've been known for, slow start this season. They were in the top 5 in the NCAA and from like 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Off to a slow start this year, but they have picked it up, and now I think they're 5th nationally, in sacks per game at like 3.33, something like that. But to your point, when your offense isn't producing, isn't going up and down the field, you need to be able to get a short field. You need a turnover. Is that fair to expect your defense to create that all the time against quality competition? No. But, to your point, Virginia is not some offensive juggernaut. And let's remember, they went down the field to sort of seal the game last week. That was like Pitt's defense had opportunities to get off the field, including that weird, that weird 4th, 5th down play. Right. Yes, that Pitt got hosed on that play. But even, I give the defensive players credit. They still had the chance. They could have stopped them on the next snap. They didn't. Is that fair to expect them to stop them on 1 yard twice in a row, basically? No. But that was what the moment was required. They would have probably still kicked a field goal, but had more time. The offense would have had more time. So, right. I think the Clemson is not, it's not. It was grinded out last week against Virginia Tech. A lot of their games have been grinded out. Clay Kubik, he started the year as a Heisman contender. He's fallen way off the pace now. Right. He's under 50%. He was under 50% passing last week. His numbers have sort of in a weird way, like he and Eli Holstein's performances have sort of mirrored each other in the sense that their production has sort of decreased as we've gotten deeper into conference play. And obviously they got it handed to them at home by Louisville a couple weeks ago in Death Valley. So this is a gettable Clemson team if we see the Pitt defense that we saw against Syracuse, that we saw against Cal, and we get the Pitt offense that we saw a little bit earlier in the season.
Yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. We still don't even know who the starting quarterback will be for Pitt yet for tomorrow. So only time will tell on that. We are going to head to break real quick. Give us a call, though, 412-575-2600. We want to hear from you guys. Welcome back. This is your GMC Sierra tweet of the night from PFF Pitt Steelers. Joey Porter Jr. has prevented separation on 65.42% of his opportunities, which is the best in the NFL. This kind of shocked me. I know Joey Porter, obviously, he creates some splash plays there in the secondary, but I think a big concern with him recently has been those penalties. But to see him put up numbers like this, best in the NFL on preventing separation. That's pretty good. So shout out to him. And he was actually out there tonight at that Friday night football game, our GMR Friday night football game tonight. So getting out there in the community, and obviously a great stop by him. And hey, this defense as a whole, we had high expectations in the beginning of the season. Maybe it looked like they were going to fall off a bit, but they're still as strong and as dominant as I think we all expected. Yeah, I think that the 27 points Washington got last weekend were a little misleading. I still think they only had 264 total yards, something like that. So, they got the benefit of the short field on the fake punt, which I still agree that was the right call. I have no problem with the call, the execution. What are you going to do? But look, they have not been tested like they're going to be tested on Sunday.
And, we could talk about, I wrote my advance for the game yesterday, and it's like, Mike Tomlin there's been villains on both sides of this thing. And I still think Lamar Jackson is still sort of waiting for his turn to be the villain. To me, if he's as good as this is probably as good as he can possibly play, right? Yeah. I mean, they have everything in place, and you would think there's no chance that he's going to he's 1-3 against them. He's got 4 touchdowns and 7 picks. I mean, he's not been he hasn't rushed for a touchdown against them in his career. You think, well, he's sort of primed. I do think that, however, last week something weird happened in the Steeler game. What happened? T.J. Watt, no tackles for the first time in his career. No sacks. I think he got credit for a couple of pressures. The idea that T.J. Watt's going to be held off the score sheet, 2 weeks in a row against a team, especially he's got 16 career sacks against them.
Right.
He's also sort of due, right? So I think that's one of the beauties of this game. This defense is good. Lamar is going, and the Ravens are going to test them. And I think it's, I know the Chiefs Bills game later Sunday, sort of like maybe the 1A matchup of the week. This is a 1B, and I really think this might be the 1A, to be honest with you. I mean, I think, does anybody really think the Chiefs are playing better than the Steelers and the Ravens? They're winning. Look, they're undefeated. Okay,
I mean, if you look at strength of schedule, it's not comparable.
Right. I mean, it's.
They've had an easier route.
Well, and look, it doesn't matter. There's no poll here. You're not trying to impress the poll voters here, right? I mean, the Chiefs are winning their games, so we have to give them, and they're soon on defending champions. We give them their flowers, but the eye test. You watch the Steelers, you watch the Ravens, you watch the Bills, you watch the Chiefs, and you said, let's power rank these 4 teams. The Chiefs are not going to be first.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, that doesn't mean that by the time we get to January, they won't be. But right now, I mean, it's, but look, this is to me, this is a bigger game for the Steelers than it is the Ravens. I think, all the talks, have been about they need to win a playoff game this year. They need to win a playoff game this year. It certainly thinks that this team is capable, offensively, more capable than they've been in the past, since probably 2017. Mm-hmm. If you get into a shootout type game, that they can score 27, 28, 30, 35 points if they have to. That seems possible. But I would just like their chances a whole lot more if they were to win the division and play that first playoff game at Acrisure. Because if they have to go on the road, even if it's like at Houston, if they finish as the 5th seed as a top wild card and they have to go to the lowest seeded division winner, let's just say that's probably going to be whoever comes out of the South, probably Houston. You sort of like their chances, but wouldn't you rather like their chances the other way around? I mean, they really need, the Steelers maybe more than the Ravens need a home game in the playoffs. So I think this game is sort of bigger for the Steelers than it is for Baltimore.
Yeah, a lot riding on this one for sure. I mean, 2 7-win teams sitting at the top of their division. It's a battle for the top spot in the North. I do want to take some callers, though. Michael in Beaver Falls, he wants to talk some Steelers. Michael, what's going on?
Well, good evening, Cassidy and Will. How are y'all tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing okay. You know what, Cassidy? I must commend you, congratulate you. You hit it right on the money last week when you predicted the Steelers were going to have a close one. Well, guess what? I believe this Sunday the Steelers will prove to the football world that we are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Hip, hip, hooray. Here we go, the Super Bowl.
Oh, I love it. I love it. High hopes from Michael. And you know what? I think a lot of Steeler fans are in that same boat with you, man.
Well, Cassidy, I know you're new to the market in terms of this being your first season in the city. It has been it's been a tough watch, these games. Really probably since 2019, right? I mean, they've been successful and competitive, but how many games have you enjoyed watching?
Yeah,
right?
I grew up a Steelers fan, so even though I wasn't here, I was watching those games, and I was miserable as well.
Right. So. To suffer through the Duck year, the Duck and the Mason year, and then we love Duck.
Had some magic.
We love Duck, but how many 19, 17, 16, 13, 10 games has the fan base had to live through? The last, really since 2017, right? So the last 7 years. So to watch a game like Sunday, that's the biggest takeaway for me. What we saw on Sunday, that was as we talked about after the game, that was the first time since they beat the Bears on Monday Night Football in 21 that they won a game where the other team scored at least 27 points, right? And I think that is the thing that has been lacking. Yeah. The defense has had to be perfect the last 6-7 years because the offense was not.
Right.
And I think now there's at least it's fun to watch. How could you not be excited the way that they won that game? Especially and I saw Richie ask Deshaun this. I asked Zach Frazier the same thing this week. I said, when you watch a play, I was talking to him about the response that, that made the rounds on social media after they drew Washington off sides with that hard count, right? And just their response, the joy there. And I said, Zach, when you see that play where Russ pulls a guy that's been in town 5 seconds, it says, yo, bro, just run straight and I'll throw you the ball. When you see that happen, and then you see something, I asked Zach, when was the last time you saw that hard count work like that in that situation? He said never. Right. Those are the sort of things, and I'm not going to go as far as our caller here, but those are the sort of things when you have it going, you get like a vibe, like something happens. Like there is a feeling in the building that did not exist before. There's this sort of like, oh, maybe we got this. And look, I want to be very clear here, and I'll give Mike Tomlin his flowers. I was one of the many people that thought, just stick with Justin Fields. Just stick with Justin Fields. He's played well. He's played well enough. Let me be fair. He's played well enough. He's won games. You were 4. I even asked him, after they got to 4-2, and then they went to Russ, and I said, Mike, you were 4-2 last year. Offense, same problems. Quarterback in a growth development part of his career, and you switched. And Mike, he said, look, Will, respectfully, he called me a word I can't say in his brain. I think he called me a word we can't say on TV here. Oh my gosh. But the translation was, Will, we didn't have Russell Wilson. We had Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, last year. So I give him credit. I think
the interesting thing, too, is they were able to bounce back. There were some mistakes on Sunday that would have crushed them, like Jalen Warren fumbling at the 1-yard line. That would have crushed them in years past. And the fact that they were able to bounce back, come down and score have that Mike Williams catch in the end zone on that next drive, I think, like you said, I just think the juices are flowing in that building. But we are going to head to break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more Steelers. Give us a call, 412-575-2600.